The galaxy was busy as always. Trade ships moving, Imperial fleets patrolling, diplomats arguing over borders. The Galactic Empire ruled everything. Or so they believed. Then, one ordinary day, a strange signal appeared. It was not like any normal distress call. It was not asking for help. It was not giving a location. It was not even long. It was only 5 simple words. Do not enter Terran territory. That was it. No name. No explanation. No threat. Just a warning. The first people who heard it were in the Imperial signal station on the Outer Rim. They thought it was a mistake. Terran? That was the name of a species that had disappeared thousands of years ago. History books said the humans, called Terrans, were destroyed in ancient wars. Their homeworlds burned. Their fleets wiped out. Nothing left except ruins and silence. So, who was sending this message now? The officers laughed. Probably some pirate having fun, they said. But the message repeated. Every hour. On every channel. Every language in the galaxy. Do not enter Terran territory. It made some people nervous. Old soldiers remembered stories. How humans had once fought like demons. How they never surrendered. How even the biggest empires of the past had feared them. But most people, especially in the Imperial court, only laughed. When the message reached the capital, the Emperor himself listened. He sat on his golden throne in the Great Hall. His council around him, the galaxy's most powerful man. He heard the 5 words. He smiled. Then he laughed. Terran territory? He said. There is no Terran territory. There are no Terrans. Only ghosts and dust. The council laughed with him. But one man did not laugh. Admiral Kor, commander of the Third Fleet, had fought many wars. He looked at the map on the screen. The so-called Terran territory was a huge dark zone, with no stations, no colonies, no traffic. It had been empty for as long as anyone could remember. Majesty, the Admiral said carefully. Maybe we should be careful. Maybe it is some kind of warning left from long ago. The Emperor waved his hand. Are we afraid of old warnings? We are the Empire. Nothing in this galaxy can threaten us. The council cheered. The Emperor gave the order. Send a fleet. Find the source. Bring me answers. Soon, 200 Imperial warships gathered at the edge of the dark zone. The biggest fleet ever sent into that region. Battleships, carriers, cruisers, full of soldiers, scientists, and explorers. They joked as they crossed the border. Some painted old Terran skull symbols on their armor for fun. The warning message kept playing on their screens. Do not enter Terran territory. Then, after they crossed the border, silence. The fleet vanished. No signals. No distress calls. Nothing came back. The Empire waited. Days passed. Then weeks. Scouts sent after them also disappeared. The capital grew restless. Finally, a merchant ship drifting near the border found a single black recorder box. It was damaged, but still working. It carried the last words of one of the lost scout ships. The voice was broken by static, shaking with fear. They're here watching us. We shouldn't be here. It's their space. This was our last warning. Then screams. Metal tearing. Explosions. Then silence. The Emperor heard the recording in his palace. His hands gripped the throne tightly, but his pride was stronger than his fear. This is a trick, he said. Some enemy is trying to scare us. They want us to look weak. We will show them the power of the Empire. He ordered more ships to prepare. A second fleet, bigger than the first. But far away, deep inside the dark zone, something was waking up. Vast shapes moved between the stars. Black as night, silent as death. They had waited for centuries. The message played again, cold and calm. Do not enter Terran territory. The news spread fast across the galaxy. 200 Imperial warships had gone into the Terran territory. The strongest fleet the Empire had ever sent into that dark zone. And now, they were gone. No signals. No survivors. No wreckage drifting back. It was as if the entire fleet had simply disappeared into nothing. At first, people thought the ships might have been delayed. Maybe a hyperlane storm had cut communications. Maybe they had discovered something and gone silent for a reason. But as days turned into weeks, and weeks into a full month, fear began to creep into the galaxy's heart. People whispered in markets, on trade stations, in crowded spaceports. Have you heard? The fleet never came back. They say the Terrans took them. Terrans? That's just a myth. But no one could explain the recordings. Yes, there was one recording. A single black box found near the border, carrying the last words of a dying pilot. They're here, the pilot had whispered through static. They're watching, in the dark. This is their space, we shouldn't be. Then screams. Metal tearing. The sound of weapons no one could identify. And then silence. The Emperor heard it many times in his palace. Each time his face grew harder, his pride sharper. The Terrans are dead, he said again and again. They were destroyed 3,000 years ago. This is someone else. Someone trying to frighten us. But fear was spreading even in his own court. Admiral Kor stood before the Emperor once more. He had warned them before. He had said the warning message might be real. Now the fleet was gone just like he had feared. Majesty, Kor said carefully, we must accept the truth. Something exists in that region. Something powerful enough to erase 200 ships as if they were nothing. The Emperor's eyes blazed. I will not believe in fairy tales, Admiral. If someone wants to test the strength of the Empire, then they will see our true power. I will send more ships, a fleet 10 times stronger. Whoever hides in that darkness will burn. But even as he spoke, deep in the cold edges of the galaxy, strange things were happening. Merchants passing near Terran space reported seeing shadows moving among the stars. Massive shapes, like mountains floating silently. Their lights would flicker once, then vanish. Some traders never returned at all. A smuggler ship came back shaking. Its crew refused to speak at first. Then one of them broke down and told the story. We saw them, the smuggler whispered in a crowded bar on a mining station. Not ghosts. Ships. Black ships. Bigger than anything the Empire has. They didn't attack us. They just watched us, like predators watching prey. Terrans? Someone asked. The smuggler nodded. If they're not Terrans, then what else could they be? They let us leave. Like a warning. The story spread fast. Soon, no one wanted to go near Terran space. Even bounty hunters, pirates, and mercenaries, the bravest and most reckless people in the galaxy, turned away from those borders. But the Emperor didn't care about fear. In the grand halls of the palace, he gathered his war council. Around a shining star map, the galaxy's most powerful generals stood waiting for orders. I want answers, the Emperor said. I want the truth behind these disappearances. And I want it now. Admiral Kor stepped forward. Majesty, if I may, sending more ships blindly will not help. We need scouts, spies, anything small and fast enough to see without being seen. The Emperor considered this. Finally, he nodded. Very well. We will send a covert team. Let them sneak in and find out what happened. If they find Terrans, or whoever is pretending to be them, we will destroy them once and for all. Across the galaxy, spies, mercenaries, and bounty hunters were hired. The most dangerous, the most skilled, the most desperate. One by one, their ships slipped quietly into Terran space. One by one, they vanished. No signals, no reports, no trace at all. Until one day, a single smuggler limped back across the border, his ship full of holes, his eyes wide with terror. He brought with him a message. They're not gone, he whispered to the Imperial officers who found him. The Terrans, they're alive. And they told me to tell you one thing. Everyone leaned close. The smuggler swallowed hard. His voice shook as he repeated the words. You were warned. And then he died. The Emperor did not believe in ghosts. He sat on his golden throne, wearing a crown of stars, as the palace messengers brought him news after news. Missing fleets, vanished spies, smugglers returning with stories of black ships in the dark. The Emperor only laughed. Terrans? He said before his entire court. Myth, legends. The galaxy loves old stories. But this is the age of the Empire. There is nothing out there that can stand against us. The counselors bowed and agreed. But not everyone agreed. Some generals stayed quiet. Some merchants left the capital without a word, selling their ships and leaving for faraway colonies. Even among the soldiers, whispers grew stronger. They remembered the warning that came every hour on every channel. Do not enter Terran territory. And they remembered the fleets that had entered and never returned. Still, the Emperor ordered more ships. A second great fleet, even bigger than the first, gathered near the border. 300 warships, 6 carrier groups, dozens of dreadnoughts, each one big enough to destroy a planet's defenses alone. The commanders of the new fleet laughed at the stories of Terrans. They held parties before departure. Some even made jokes about bringing back Terran skulls as souvenirs. The Emperor himself came to the military parade before they launched. He stood before the glittering ships and raised his hand. "Go," he commanded, his voice echoing across the ranks. "Find whoever dares to frighten the Empire. Burn them if you must. Show the galaxy that we bow to no one." The fleet cheered and crossed into Terran space. The galaxy waited, and then something changed. It started with the probes. Dozens of small Imperial probes flew ahead of the fleet, sending back images. At first, they showed only darkness, empty space, no planets, no stations, no enemy ships. Then one probe sent back something strange, an image so dark it was almost impossible to see. At the edge of the stars, something moved, something big. The probe sent another image. The dark shape moved again, faster this time, blocking the starlight behind it. Then the signal ended. The fleet commanders looked at each other. "Probably an asteroid," one said. "Or a broken camera," another joked. The Emperor, watching from his palace, smirked. "See? No Terrans. Just shadows." But the shadows kept moving. More probes vanished. One probe sent a final image before its signal went dead. The image was blurry but clear enough to see. A massive shape, bigger than any Imperial dreadnought, floating silently. No lights, no heat signatures, no transponders. Just there, watching. The fleet commander ordered the dreadnought Iron Glory to move closer. Its giant engines lit the dark as it approached the shape. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the shape moved. It moved faster than anything that size should move. The Iron Glory tried to scan it. Suddenly, its entire system went dark. Every screen on the ship flickered and died. Before the crew could even panic, a beam of white light sliced through the Iron Glory like it was paper. The dreadnought, pride of the Imperial Navy, split into 2 burning halves and vanished into the void. The fleet froze. The commanders shouted orders, their voices shaking. Every weapon on every ship aimed at the shadow. Missiles, cannons, torpedoes. But when the lights came back on, the shadow was gone. Then came the voices. Across every ship's communication system, a cold, calm voice spoke. "You were warned." The soldiers froze. The commanders screamed for answers. The Emperor, watching from his palace, turned pale for the first time. And then, one by one, the shadows appeared. Not one, not 2, dozens. Colossal ships, blacker than the void itself, surrounded the entire Imperial fleet. They had no markings, no flags, no heat signatures, but everyone knew who they were. Terrans, the ghosts of history, the demons of old wars, the ones who had vanished for 3,000 years. They were back. The fleet fired everything they had. Missiles streaked through space. Plasma cannons lit the darkness. The Terran ships moved through it all like hunters among flies. One by one, Imperial ships exploded. Carriers split apart. Cruisers turned to fireballs. Even dreadnoughts fell silent as the black ships tore through them with weapons the galaxy had never seen before. It was not a battle. It was slaughter. Within an hour, half the fleet was gone. And the Terran ships, not one was destroyed. The last surviving commander screamed into the comms. "Who are you? What do you want?" The Terran voice answered, calm and cold. "Leave, or there will be nothing left to save." And then, as quickly as they had appeared, the black ships vanished into the darkness once more. The surviving Imperial ships limped back across the border, broken and burning. The galaxy had its answer now. The Terrans were alive. And they were angry. The news hit the galaxy like a meteor. The Second Imperial Fleet, 300 ships, carriers, dreadnoughts, the pride of the Empire, was gone. Some ships returned, but only a handful. Burned, broken, their crews shaken and silent. And with them came the recordings. Images of black ships, bigger than anything the galaxy had seen before, moving like predators in the dark. Imperial weapons had no effect on them. The Terran ships tore through the fleet like it was nothing. And then there was the voice. You were warned. Those 3 words spread across every planet, every station, every corner of the Empire. People whispered them in fear. Merchants refused to go near Terran space. Soldiers looked over their shoulders in silence. For the first time in centuries, the Empire felt small. In the Imperial Palace, the Emperor sat alone in the war room, staring at the recordings. The Terran ships looked ancient yet terrifyingly advanced. Black hulls, no lights, no heat signatures. Weapons that destroyed dreadnoughts in seconds. How? The Emperor whispered to himself. They were supposed to be dead. Extinct. We burned their worlds 3,000 years ago. But now, they were back. And they were stronger. The council demanded answers. Generals shouted for more fleets. Some wanted peace. Others wanted war. The Emperor raised his hand. Enough, he said coldly. We will speak to them. If they want us to stay out, let them say it directly. And so, the first Imperial envoy was sent into Terran space. It was a single diplomatic cruiser, carrying no weapons, only ambassadors and translators. They crossed the border slowly, carefully. The entire galaxy watched. Every news channel, every space station, every soldier with access to a comm screen followed the journey. Would the Terrans destroy the envoy like they had destroyed the fleets? Or would they finally speak? The envoy traveled deeper and deeper into Terran space. First, nothing happened. No signals. No attacks. The stars were silent. Then, they saw it. A single Terran ship. It was not as big as the others from the recordings. Sleek, dark, moving slowly toward them. The ambassadors stared at it from the viewports. It looked old. Ancient even. Its hull was scratched, marked by battles long forgotten. Yet there was something about it, something powerful. It stopped a few kilometers away. The envoy sent a message in every known language. We come in peace. We request a meeting. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then a voice answered. State your purpose. It was calm, cold. The ambassador stepped forward. We come on behalf of the Galactic Empire. Our fleets crossed your borders without knowing you still lived here. We wish to speak with your leaders. Silence. The Terran ship floated closer. On the screens, the ambassadors saw its weapons clearly now. Strange, curved structures along its hull glowing faintly. Weapons that had destroyed hundreds of Imperial ships. The voice spoke again. You were warned. Twice. The ambassador swallowed hard. Yes, and the Emperor sends his regrets. He wishes to avoid further misunderstanding. For a long moment, the Terran ship said nothing. Then its weapons powered down. Follow us, the voice said. The envoy followed the Terran ship through empty space. Then suddenly they saw it. The Terran fleet. Hundreds of ships, silent and dark, surrounding what looked like a massive space station, the size of a small moon. The ambassadors gasped. They had never seen anything like it. The Terran ships moved slowly, watching, weapons ready. The envoy ship was guided into a huge docking bay. The walls inside were black metal. Ancient banners with strange symbols hung from the ceilings. Soldiers in dark armor, faces hidden behind helmets, stood silently as the ambassadors were escorted out. None of them spoke. Finally, they reached a vast chamber. At the center sat a single figure in black armor, his face hidden behind a mask. When he spoke, his voice was deep and steady. You stand in Terran space, he said. This is your only warning. Leave and never return. Or the next time, there will be no survivors. The ambassadors tried to argue. They spoke of peace, of trade, of diplomacy. The Terran leader said only one thing: the galaxy forgot us. We did not forget the galaxy. And with that, the audience was over. The ambassadors were escorted back to their ship, shaken and pale. When they returned to the Empire, the Emperor demanded a report. What did they want? He asked. The chief ambassador looked at him with hollow eyes. They want us to stay out, he whispered. They don't want war. But if we cross them again, Majesty, we won't survive it. The Emperor said nothing. But far in the dark, the Terran fleet was already moving. Watching. Waiting. The Imperial palace was restless. The ambassadors had returned from Terran space, pale and shaken. They brought no peace treaty, no trade deals, no promises. Only a warning. The same words the Terrans had spoken before. Stay out, or there will be no survivors. The Emperor heard the report in silence. He sat on his golden throne, his face dark, his hands gripping the armrests. They dare to threaten the Empire? He said finally, his voice low with anger. After we spared them once, after we crushed them centuries ago, the Terrans should not even exist. But Admiral Kor, standing nearby, shook his head slowly. Majesty, he said carefully, maybe we never crushed them. Maybe we only thought we did. The Emperor turned sharply. Explain. And so, for the first time, the Empire began digging through its own history. Old records were pulled from the archives. Files so ancient they had been buried under centuries of dust. Reports from the last human war, 3,000 years ago, when the old Imperial forces had burned Earth's colonies, destroyed Terran fleets, and claimed victory. But hidden deep in those files were fragments of messages no one had read in centuries. Warnings from Imperial spies. Strange reports from soldiers. They are retreating, but it's too organized. The humans are leaving on purpose. We think they are building something. We don't think this war is over. We think they are planning for the future. The last message sent chills through the Emperor's council. They call it the Black Armada, a secret fleet, hidden, waiting. The council chamber fell silent. The Emperor stared at the words on the old screen. Are you saying, he said slowly, that humans planned all this? That they let us think they were dead? Admiral Kor nodded grimly. Yes, Majesty. They hid. For 3,000 years, they waited. They built fleets in secret. Weapons beyond anything we have ever seen. They wanted us to forget them, so that when they returned, they would be unstoppable. The Emperor slammed his fist against the throne. We are the Empire, he shouted. We control the galaxy. No ghosts from the past will threaten us. But even as he spoke, the truth was spreading beyond the palace walls. Merchants, travelers, even smugglers brought back rumors from the borders. Entire Terran worlds existed deep inside that dark zone. Hidden planets covered in shields, building warships the size of moons. Some claimed the Terrans had technology that could cloak whole fleets, making them invisible until they struck. Others whispered that the Terrans had found weapons from even older civilizations, extinct empires that had ruled the stars before humans or the Empire even existed. And now all that power belonged to them. Meanwhile, in the shadows of Terran space, a secret council gathered. Human leaders, dressed in dark armor, stood around a vast table covered in star maps. One of them, an old commander with silver hair and cold eyes, spoke first. The Empire knows now, he said. They've seen our fleets. They've heard our warning. They will either leave us alone or force us to finish what we started 3,000 years ago. Another leader, a woman with sharp features, nodded slowly. They burned our homeworlds, she said softly. They thought we died, but we survived. We built in silence. We waited for the day they would come again. She looked at the others. That day has come. Back in Imperial space, fear began to grow. The Emperor ordered more ships, more weapons, more soldiers. Massive recruitment began across the galaxy. But deep down, everyone knew the truth. The Empire had fought rebels, pirates, even alien empires before. But this was different. The Terrans were not just survivors. They were planners, builders. soldiers who had prepared for this war for 3,000 years. And they had a fleet, the galaxy now called by a new name, the Black Armada. On the border of Terran space, Imperial scouts reported strange movements. Huge ships, bigger than cities, drifting silently just outside the border. The scouts swore the ships were watching them, waiting. One scout transmitted a final message before vanishing. They're ready. Whatever they've been building for centuries. It's done. And then his signal went dark. In the palace, the Emperor called his council once more. We will not bow, he said. We will not retreat. If the Terrans want war, we will bring the entire empire against them. Admiral Kor said nothing, because deep down he knew the truth. The empire had numbers. But the Terrans, they had something far more dangerous. They had patience. They had rage. And they had been waiting for this moment for a very, very long time. The decision was made. The Emperor stood before his council, his voice echoing across the chamber. The Terrans think we are afraid, he said. They think their old warships and empty threats can stop the empire. We will show them the power of 1,000 worlds. His words thundered through the palace halls. Generals nodded. Admirals saluted. The great machine of the empire began to move. Within weeks, the largest fleet in history gathered near Terran space. Not hundreds, thousands. Warships from every corner of the empire. Carriers loaded with fighters. Dreadnoughts with guns the size of towers. Entire planets had been stripped of soldiers and weapons for this one attack. The Emperor called it Operation Final Dawn. Wipe them out, he ordered. Erase the Terrans from history. This time, for good. The people cheered. The soldiers chanted. The galaxy held its breath. Admiral Kor stood on the bridge of the lead ship, a massive command dreadnought named Eternal Wrath. He stared at the dark border of Terran space. Deep down, something in his chest felt heavy. They had already lost 2 fleets. The Terrans had given warnings. Again and again they had told the Empire to stay out. And now, they were going in with everything. Kor didn't know if it was courage or madness. Maybe both. The fleet crossed the border. First, nothing happened. No enemy ships. No weapons. Just empty space. The soldiers on board laughed. Some said the Terrans were cowards. Others said they had already fled. The Emperor himself was watching the battle through live transmissions, waiting for news of victory. Then the sensors lit up. First 1 blip, then 10, then hundreds. The Terran fleet appeared out of the dark like a rising storm. Colossal ships, black as night, sliding silently into formation. Some were the size of moons. Others carried weapons no one in the Empire had ever seen before. And at the center, a single warship so massive it blocked out the stars behind it. The Black Armada had come. Admiral Kor stared at the giant ship on his screen. That's not possible, one officer whispered. It's the size of a planet. But it was real, and it was moving straight toward them. The Emperor's voice boomed over the fleet's comms. Attack! Destroy them all! Thousands of Imperial ships opened fire. Missiles streaked across the void. Plasma beams lit up the darkness. The first wave of fighters screamed toward the Terran fleet. The space between the 2 forces turned into a burning storm of light and fire. And then, the Terrans answered. The Black Armada came alive. The massive planet-sized ship fired once. A single beam of white light tore through space like the fist of a god. An entire Imperial carrier group, 30 ships, vanished in seconds. The Terran warships moved with deadly precision. They cut through Imperial dreadnoughts like they were made of paper. Imperial fighters swarmed them like angry insects. The Terran point defense weapons turned them into clouds of fire before they even got close. It wasn't a battle. It was an execution. Admiral Kor shouted orders, trying to hold the fleet together. Flank them. Focus fire on the big one. Hundreds of Imperial ships targeted the planet-sized Terran vessel. Their weapons hit its dark hull again and again. The ship didn't even slow down. Its shields swallowed the fire like rain hitting stone. Then it fired back. Another Imperial fleet vanished in a flash of light. Back in the palace, The Emperor watched the destruction in stunned silence. This was supposed to be his victory, but his fleets were dying faster than reports could even reach him. Why can't we hurt them?" he demanded. No one had an answer. For every Terran ship destroyed, if any were destroyed at all, 100 Imperial ships fell. The Black Armada moved through the Empire's greatest fleet like wolves through a flock of sheep. In less than 2 hours, half the Imperial Armada was gone. Entire worlds watched the battle live. And for the first time they realized the truth. The Empire was not invincible. Admiral Kor sent one final message to the palace. "Majesty," he said, his voice shaking as explosions lit the bridge behind him. "We cannot win this. The Terrans, they planned for this war for 3,000 years. We walked into a trap." The transmission ended in static. Moments later, the eternal wrath exploded. The surviving Imperial ships fled in chaos. The Black Armada did not chase them. They simply stopped at the border, silent and waiting, watching. The message came again across every frequency, in every language. "This is your final warning. Enter Terran space again, and there will be nothing left of your empire." The Emperor sat frozen on his throne, his grand fleet burning in the void. For the first time in his life he felt fear. Real fear, because he knew the truth now. The Terrans had never been the prey. They had always been the hunters. And the galaxy had just learned what happened when the hunters came out of the dark. The Imperial Palace was silent. The war room that had once echoed with confidence and pride now felt cold and hollow. The Emperor sat on his throne, his face pale, his golden crown heavy on his head. Around him, generals and counselors stood in silence, afraid to speak. The largest fleet in the history of the Empire was gone. Thousands of ships, millions of soldiers, entire carrier groups wiped out like dust in the wind. And the Terrans? Not a single Terran ship was confirmed destroyed. The Empire had sent everything it had, and it was nothing against the power that had waited 3,000 years in the dark. Survivors told stories the galaxy would never forget. They spoke of ships the size of planets, moving with silent precision. Of weapons that could erase whole fleets with a single strike. Of Terran warships surrounding them like wolves circling wounded prey. And worst of all, the Terrans had never chased the survivors. They let them go, as if to say, "Run. Tell them. Warn them." The message had come again. The same cold voice across every channel. "This was your final warning. Enter Terran space again, and there will be nothing left of your empire." Those words now echoed across every planet, every station, every corner of the galaxy. In the great hall of the palace, the Emperor called for his council. His voice was sharp, angry, but there was fear in it now too. "They want to scare us," he said, gripping the throne. "They want us to bow before them. We are the Empire. We do not bow to anyone." But Admiral Kor was gone. Most of the high command was dead with the fleet. The surviving generals shifted uncomfortably. One of them, an older man with a scar across his face, finally spoke. "Majesty," he said carefully, "this is not about fear. This is about survival. The Terrans have technology beyond anything we've seen. We throw fleets at them and they destroy us like insects. If they attack us directly, the Empire will fall." The Emperor's face twisted with rage. But deep down he knew it was true. Meanwhile, in Terran space, the Black Armada gathered at the edge of the dark zone. From orbit, their ships looked like a wall of night itself. Silent, unmoving, unstoppable. On the central warship, a Terran commander watched the Imperial survivors flee through the stars. "They will come again," one officer said quietly. The commander shook his head. "No, they have learned. We gave them their last chance." He turned to the fleet. "Hold the border. Let the galaxy know we are not conquerors. But if they cross us again, there will be no second warning." Across the galaxy, fear spread like wildfire. Merchants avoided the old Terran borders. Smugglers refused to enter the dark zone. Even pirates whispered Terran stories in quiet voices, afraid the shadows themselves might be listening. And slowly, people began to realize the truth. The Terrans were not invaders. They did not want new worlds. They did not want power over the Empire. They wanted one thing only, to be left alone. But if the galaxy could not give them peace, then the Terrans would bring war unlike anything the stars had ever seen. In the palace, the Emperor stared at a star map showing the Terran borders. For the first time in his reign, he looked small. Once, the Empire had spread across the stars like fire. Now, the shadow of the Black Armada loomed over everything. The council argued, some wanted peace, others demanded revenge. But no one had a plan to defeat the Terrans. Because everyone knew it now. The Empire's age of dominance was over. The galaxy had a new power. One that had waited in silence for 3,000 years. One that had returned with a warning the stars would never forget. The last message from the Terrans came days later. A single black drone crossed the border and delivered a transmission straight to the Imperial palace. The Emperor himself opened it. On the screen, a Terran officer in dark armor appeared. His face was hidden behind a mask, his voice calm, steady, and cold. "This is your final warning," he said. "Do not cross our borders again. We will not ask twice. If you come, there will be no empire left to save." And then the transmission ended. For a long time, the Emperor sat frozen on his throne. No one in the hall spoke, because they all knew what would happen if the Empire ignored that warning. They had seen the Black Armada in action. They had seen entire fleets vanish like sparks in the wind. And they knew, the next time it would not stop at the border. It would come for the Empire itself. And nothing in the galaxy could stop it.